week in the United States. And amazingly enough, we are not seeing a lot of truth come out of the media. It's as though they don't understand why someone would attack the United States. And so I had a very interesting post from Dr. Jim come across not too long ago, and I want to share that with you. He posts this about Islam, and he has done some tremendous research about Islam and about the Quran, about their holy book. And if you ever want to research Islam, if you want to listen to some audio recordings, go out to Dr. Jim's recordings, and he interviews a man named IQ al-Razuli. Al-Razuli is formerly from Iraq. He was raised in a Islamic family, and he has a tremendous insight into Islam. He has actually had to leave the country, and Dr. Jim has interviewed him probably 20 or 30 times that I know of. And these are some of the verses that he has found that we can look at. He says, in Christian Love, I need some answers from any Muslim anywhere in the world. He actually wrote this before the Boston attack. I am told that Islam is a peaceful religion. Please explain why Islam should be viewed as peaceful when the following verses are found in the Quran. And you'll have to forgive my pronunciation on these verses. It will be bad on some of them. The first verse he lists is Al-Tawbah 9:29, and it says in the Quran, fight those who believe not in Allah, nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden which hath been forbidden by Allah and His apostle, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, even if they are the people of the book. This would be the people of the Bible, that's you. Until they pay the jizyah with willing submission. That means you give your money and you submit, you bow before them, and feel themselves subdued. Now, you young people need to listen to this, because Islam is taking over our country. We have no means to overcome it except truth, and that is Bible doctrine. Point that you need to understand: you cannot tolerate that which will not tolerate you. So if you have somebody that has another religion, you just say, yeah, fine, practice your religion. I'll practice mine. You can't do that with Islam. You know why? They want to chop you up. And so you cannot tolerate Islam. It is more than just a religion. It's a cult. It's actually called a political cult. You can call it a lot of things. Look at the second verse. Al-Ma'idah 5:51. O ye who believe. Remember, this is the Islamic people who believe. Take not the Jews and the Christians for your friends and protectors. They are but friends and protectors to each other. Isn't that amazing? We're a friend to the Jews. Most of them are a friend to us. The Quran establishes the same fact. And he amongst you that turns to them, that is, a Muslim, is of them unbelievers. Now here's what you're going to find out about Islam. You're going to have some peaceful Islamic people. They'll be peaceful. They'll say, oh, jihad, Islam is a peaceful religion. But did you know that the Muslims who are labeled radical, they actually look at the peaceful Islamic believers as backslidden. And you know what they do with their reversionist? If somebody falls out of fellowship with us, you know what we do? We might call them and say, hey, we missed you, something like that. You know what they do? They kill them. They're considered an infidel, just like a Christian or a Jew. And so somebody that says, oh, Islam is a peaceful religion, the next thing you know, they're getting their head chopped off. No, you go to jihad or you die, see. The third verse, Muhammad 47:4. So when you meet those who disbelieve in battle, strike their necks until you have inflicted slaughter upon them. Then secure their bonds, that means enslave them, and either favor towards or ransom them until the war lays down its burden, that means until you pummel them. That is the command, and if Allah had willed, He could have taken vengeance upon him Himself. But He ordered armed struggle, that means jihad, to test some of you by means of others. And those who are killed in the cause of Allah, never will He waste their deeds. Remember, for an Islamic person to die in battle is their greatest victory. They believe that they're going to get just all kinds of rewards when they die. Did you see the older brother charged the police? He charged into the police, into gunfire. They couldn't hit him. He was right down the street. And they showed, I was just looking through on the news, this guy's up in his house. He's got his camera. He's taking pictures of these guys down the street. They're gunfight. Boss this master. Yankees can't shoot. These guys, I mean, they're like 50 yards away from him, and he's up here in this 3-story house taking pictures, and after it's all over, he goes down into his office. There's bullet holes in his house. It comes through the wall, right through the middle of a calendar he's got on the wall, and right through an office chair. Poof! And it's 50 yards away from where the guys are standing on the street. Can you imagine? He had his eyes closed. Pow! Shooting through houses. I'm going, my goodness, if I had been in a 3rd-story house, I would have helped them, you know. We got to get rid of these guys where everybody gets shot. But anyway, he charged into the police. That's the only reason they even hit him. I don't know how close he had to get them to shoot him. But they missed a lot. Because it says here, Allah will never waste His deeds. And it goes on to say in other places that they'll have 70 virgins waiting on them in heaven. Verse number 4 that he cites, Al-Tawbah 9:73, O prophet, fight against the disbelievers. This is also called the infidel. You're an infidel, okay? Can you hear that? You're an infidel. Fight against the disbelievers and the hypocrites, and be harsh upon them. And their refuge is hell, and wretched is the destination. Can you see that they believe you're going to hell? Verse number 5, Al-Imran 3:56. And as far as those who disbelieved, I will punish them with a severe punishment in this world and hereafter, and they will have no helpers. I want to go down to verse number 10. Al-Nisa 4:160, for wrongdoing on the part of the Jews, we made it unlawful for them certain good foods which had been lawful to them, and for their averting from the way of Allah. I want to go down. I think there was one more I wanted to read. Well, anyway, we get the idea. Do you get the idea? Do you know why the Islamic young men bombed the innocent people on the street there? Because of verses like this. Now, you have to say to yourself, well, they're just going to leave me alone. I want to be peaceable about this. No, you have to call these guys out on the street. These guys are bullies. And you're going to have to say, no, you're not going to terrorize my country. We're calling you out. We don't want you out here bombing civilians. We're going to call you out in the street. You come out here and fight like a man. That's what it's going to take. Either that or we're going to have to get every one of them by the shirt collar, and we're going to have to drag them to the border, and we're going to have to take a big American boot and boot them right out of the United States. That's what it's going to take. Our government is not stiff-necked enough to be able to do things like that. It's going to come down to you and I being able to try to convince other people about Islam and be educated about the subject. I'm going to go back here. We were reading in Genesis 14. We're going to cover the doctrine of warfare because Abraham was about to establish a nation out of his family. And you see here that Abraham is camped out in the plain. He's got his own small city there. And Lot camped out next to town. And a war came through, and he was taken away as a slave. In verse 11. Then they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and went their way. So they also took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. And so we see here that a whole town is taken captive. We know why, because Sodom and Gomorrah is traditionally a bankrupt town. And you can imagine nobody was prepared to fight there. In verse 14, we see here that it says, now when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, the word brother means relative, was taken captive, he armed his 381, get the one word here, in verse 14. It says 381 trained servants. So here we have a situation. These 381 guys have grown up with Abraham. They've marched across deserts. They've got livestock abundance out here. Abraham is possibly one of the richest men on earth at this time. And he has trained up his servants, his cowboys, his cooks, his rustlers, his wood choppers, all of his guys that were in his outfit. Guess what he did with them from young men? He trained them to fight. He trained them to fight. They didn't go off to some college to learn how to fight. Abraham trained them. And now he is prepared. He's prepared for battle. So all of a sudden, we see that Lot gets captured and Abraham is the prepared one. Can you see that? Abraham has prepared his men. He's taught them how to fight. And you're going to see that Abraham goes and rescues Lot. Now, I want to come back to the doctrine of the military, and I want to show you the points that we have so far. And then we're going to continue the story. Doctrine of warfare. Point number 1. Till Jesus comes back. There will be wars and rumors of war. This is called make a point. Point number 1. Point number 1. Till Jesus comes back, Matthew 24. There will be wars and rumors of wars. That means there will be hot wars and cold wars. Till Jesus comes back and He establishes His kingdom on earth. Jesus says, see that you be not afraid. Don't fall apart. Don't be scared. And so point number 2 is the military is required. And we see this in Nehemiah 4, 8 and 9. We looked at this last week. Nehemiah, he took them in, and about the same as Abraham. He qualified them on different weapons. These guys hadn't had any more formal training. And he built a military force out of the Jews in Jerusalem as they rebuilt the walls. And so if you're going to be a sovereign and independent nation, you've got to have a strong military. Now we're going to look at a new point. The military image of Jesus Christ. Yahweh Zebaoth, the Lord of heaven's armies. Let's look at Joshua 5:13. Flip right over to Joshua 5:13. See if this is here. Yeah, here it is. Did anybody watch that Bible thing on the History Channel? Somebody watch some of that? What did they call that? The Bible? It would be great if you never read your Bible. You just look at that and say, man, that's great. If you're a real keen Bible student, you would be going, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. It was still entertaining to me to even watch it. But they showed this scene out of this verse right here on the let's read it first, and then I'll tell you what was wrong with it. This is Joshua. It says, and it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho, he lifted up his eyes and looked. From the verse here, it looks like he's outside Jericho. He may be out praying. He's out in front of his troops. He's out on patrol. He's out on a patrol where he doesn't understand. He may be seeing an enemy here. And it says, a man stood opposite him with his sword drawn in his hand. So all of a sudden he looks up, and this guy's got the drop on him. He's already got his sword drawn. And Joshua went to him and said to him, are you for us or for our adversaries? So whose side are you on? In verse 14, he said, no, but as commander of the army of the Lord. It actually means as commander of heaven's armies, I have now come. And so Joshua is here. He's thinking he is the commander of the armies of Israel. Joshua's thinking, I'm the man. Joshua was bowed up. He'd walked through the desert for 40 years eating perfect food. He comes up there. His calf muscles are huge from walking through sand. He walks up to this guy and he says, I'm thinking, I'm the commander. And Jesus says, I come as the commander of heaven's armies, of the armies of Israel. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped and said to him, what does my Lord say to his servant? Then the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy. And Joshua did so. And so we find out Yahweh here, Lord, this is Jesus Christ, the pre-incarnate Christ right here. This is before he's ever born. He appears as the commander of the armies of Israel. And in the movie, he shows up as a black guy. Did you see that? Did anybody watch that part? Anyway, the guy shows up in the middle of the night. And so in the movie, they didn't realize it was Jesus Christ himself that showed up as the commander of all the armies. And they had a big black fellow on there. Also, Isaiah, we need to see this passage, Isaiah 37. Isaiah 37:36. Here's what's so funny. People are so scared these days. People are so scared. A lot of my big, burly friends are scared. They see, if you saw what happened in Boston, they literally threw people out of their houses and said, "We will shoot you if you do not let us in your house to search for these criminals, for these bombers." And they literally had people drug out of their houses for the SWAT teams to go in and look, which is a total breach of the Fourth Amendment. You have the right to privacy under the Fourth Amendment, unless there's a legitimate cause, and then they have to have a search warrant to come on your land. And so people saw that and they said, bam, that's exactly how it's going to happen at my house. They're going to say, we've got a just cause here. There's a terrorist loose. We need to come in and look. And I've even heard that they disarmed. They collected some guns. I'm not sure if that's true or not. And so people are scared to death about what's going to happen if somebody wants to come in their home, because all of my friends have swore from my cold, dead hands they'll take my guns. Well, if it goes down like that, buddy, they're saying, man, that doesn't look good for me. Well, guess what? If you're a spiritual man and Jesus Christ is on your side, you've got nothing to fear. You know why? Because of Isaiah 37. Isaiah 37, verse 36. Even if every Islamic cell in the United States goes into action tonight, guess what Jesus Christ can do? It just so happens at this period of time that there was a Bible class that Isaiah was holding in Jerusalem, and they had been surrounded by the most powerful army in the world, and they had laid siege to Jerusalem. And everybody inside the city is going, oh, we're done for. We are absolutely done for. There's 185,000 troops camped out around the city, just waiting to break down the walls and ransack, rape, pillage, murder, whatever it may be. But they prayed. There was positive volition inside the city. They were having they had a group of Bible students in there, and they prayed. And in verse 36, we see here, and the angel of the Lord, this is Jesus Christ. The angel of the Lord went out and killed in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. When the people arose early in the morning, there were corpses all dead. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and went away, returned home, and remained at Nineveh. So a desperate situation turned around overnight because Jesus Christ, the angel of the Lord, was for the guys on the inside of the city. You see that? And so nothing can touch you, even when you're in a situation where you're cornered, you have no way to respond, you don't have any means of protecting yourself. Guess what? Guess who's on your side? Jesus Christ. And this portrays the military image of Jesus Christ because he holds the record for confirmed kills. You know how you read that book? What's his name? Who? Chris Kyle. military hero, sniper. How many got it? How many Talibanis did he get? Don't remember. It was like 200, wasn't it? 190? More than 200? The former one was from Arkansas. You know that? Arkansas squirrel hunter. That's right. Carlos Hathcock. And Chris Kyle may have gotten 200 Taliban, but Jesus Christ holds the all-time record, 185,000 slew in one night. And he's not done. That's going to be small compared to Armageddon and the revolution of Gog and Magog. Point number 4, universal training is good. In Genesis 14:14 we see this. And then also, one of my favorite, Psalm 144, I believe that's going to be verse 1. I'm going to turn over there and read that Psalm 144. This is written by David. Remember, David started out as a sheep herder, and he started out in woods, and he started out killing predators, lions and bears. He became the premier fighting man in Israel. And he got that way, guess what? Through training. Psalm 144 says, "Blessed be the Lord, my rock." I love this because a rock is a place of refuge. Did you know they still have a hard time shooting through rocks? Rocks is one of the things that, even with modern military, we couldn't get a lot of the Talibanis because they ran up into rocks. They'd run up into caves. And you couldn't get to them. You had to wait for them to come out. David knew this, and he compared the Lord to the rock because it was a place of refuge where no one could get to you. Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war. Guess what? It takes muscle memory to be able to operate weapons. That means you do it the same way every time, over and over and over again for thousands of repetitions. And David knew how to draw his sword. He knew how to slice and dice. He knew how to throw a spear. He knew how to use his shield. He knew how to use a sling. He knew how to shoot a bow and arrow. He knew how to operate all the weapons that you needed to know how to run. And you get that through practice. Who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. I love this. Because you have to have dexterity. If you're going to play a piano, you got to know where the keys are. If you're going to operate a weapon, you got to know where the switches are. You got to know how to rack the bolt. You got to know how to work the safety. You got to know how to change magazines. And it takes dexterity to be able to do that. And guess what? Our military men and women, our believers, who are training to kill the enemy, whether it be the Taliban overseas, whether it be to catch terrorists here in the United States, the good Lord helps them in their training. Who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. And so universal military training is good. It is a shame that we're not doing that for all of our young men in Israel. They train all of their young people, men and women, in military service. And it is good for a nation. Just warfare is from God. 1 Chronicles 5:19 through 22. Just warfare is from God. Abraham had a just means of warfare when he went to war to save his relative Lot and their family. And the Bible declares that just warfare is from God. 1 Chronicles 5:19 through 22. It says, they made war with the Hagarites, Jetur and Apish, and Nodab. Verse 20 it says, and they were helped against them, and the Hagarites were delivered into their hand, and all who were with them, for they cried out to God in battle. And he heeded their prayers, because they put their trust in him. Then they took away their livestock, 50,000 of their camels, 250,000 of their sheep, 2,000 of their donkeys, also 100,000 of their men. In verse 22, for many fell dead or slain, because the war was God's, and they dwelt in their place until the captivity. And so we see that just warfare is from God. In World War II, do you think God wasn't with the United States when we were going over there to free what Jews were left? It's amazing that you hear the stories about soldiers who charged into machine gun fire in World War II. You tell me that's not crazy. Charging a machine gun bunker. And I've even heard stories of some of them who ran out of shells, Preston, in World War II. Ran out of bullets. All they had was their bayonets affixed. Charged in, killed the Germans out of a machine gun bunker. They got a fully automatic machine gun, the MG-42, the fastest machine gun ever built. They called it the buzzsaw. It was so fast you can hear one round from the other. It just sounded like wah! Charging into machine gun fire, and they killed the Germans with bayonets and hand grenades and pistols because the war was from God. And when we got over there, we found many of the Jewish people still alive in concentration camps, still hiding, still fighting. Just warfare is from God. Now here's the opposite. You don't want to go into a war if it's not just war. If you're in it to capture, to pillage, to take plunder, guess what? That's not a proper war. Peace comes through military victory. Joshua 11:23. At the end of our verse here, it also says that they dwelt in their place until the captivity. They so thoroughly hammered their enemies that no one dared attack them. Now we're facing right now in our military sequestration, right at the time when we need to be increasing our military, we are decreasing. And so this goes against a couple of points. It goes against a lot of points we have here. But peace comes through military victory. And so when people are scared of you, they dare not attack. One of the reasons we've never faced an invasion in the United States of America is because every young man knew how to shoot a rifle. And people understood, the invading armies understood, that not only would you be facing the National Guard and police forces, every redneck in every crevice of the world is going to come out with daddy's shotgun and or their deer rifle, and you're going to have to face that. And so we've been very blessed in the United States to have excellent marksmanship here. I want to turn back to Genesis 14. I want you to see how the story ends. The first victory is in verse 14, and it's the victory of mental attitude. And we have a lesson here. Abraham didn't, when the servant came and said, Lot's been taken captive. His whole family has gone into slavery. They've taken everything they've got, Abraham. Abraham didn't say, yeah, I told that sucker. I told him stay away from that place. Uh-huh. Yep, he got what he deserved. That's what you would have said, right? I told him. Abraham didn't say that. He didn't say, I told him to study the Bible. I told him to get back to Bible class, and now look what's happened. Abraham didn't do that. The first victory that Abraham had here was mental attitude. And he understand that God is a just God, and He's a gracious God. And He was going to deliver Lot out of grace, a grace mental attitude. Even though Lot didn't earn it, he didn't deserve it, the first victory here of Abraham's is the mental attitude. He didn't get into mental attitude sins. Verse 14, it says, Now when Abram heard that his brother or relative was taken captive, he armed. That means he went to the tent. He got out his bullets, got out his rifles, got his men in order. He armed his 380 trained servants. These men, they asked Abraham, why do we have to train every day? I don't know why you make us get up before daylight and get out here and practice marksmanship. It's so boring. I don't know why their whole lives they were. Abraham stood them up. He said, you stand up straight. You get it right. You handle that sword. You handle that weapon. And now on this day, they're going to learn why they trained. Trained servants who were born in his own house. He hand-trained every one of them. And went in pursuit as far as Dan. He divided his forces against them by night. Now, you got to know here, Abraham is in charge of about 1,000 men. He had two different allies that were with him. So he had about 1,000 men here. But he was going against it. How many do you think 1,000 can take? How many do you think he was going against? He was going against 100,000. 1,000 against 100,000. Yeah. 1,000 against 100,000. And now you're going to find out that Abraham, God is on his side. He divided his forces against them by night, a night attack. And he and servants attacked them and pursued them. That means not only did he attack them while they were camping. Do you know why Abraham had the upper hand? Because Sodom and Gomorrah had more beer and whiskey than any other town. Did you know that? And when they pillaged in Sodom and Gomorrah, they didn't make it too far down the road because they were drinking. And they were partying. And plus, they had taken all of the women from the city. And so these soldiers were soldiers of fortune. And you can imagine what happened in the period of time after they had taken this city. And Abraham came in the middle of the night while they were all laid out. Guess what? Easy pickings. Easy pickings. And he pursued them. It says he pressed the attack. He not only ambushed, but he pressed them. They chased them down while they were stumbling over themselves, and they killed them. As far as Hobah, which is north of Damascus. In verse 16, we see his military victory. This is his second victory of Abraham. So he brought back all the goods and also brought back his brother Lot and his goods, as well as the women and the people. We can see that this turned out pretty good for Lot. I want to stop right there, and I want to ask, is there any questions